Okay, so we're still talking about creation tools. We'll probably spend another 10 minutes or so on these. And if we don't cover all of them, that's intentional because we're going to talk about them later. I have a later lecture sort of prepared. But I just wanted to go through some of these miscellaneous tools that, I just wanted to talk about the icon, what it does, what the tool does, so that way you have a context for it. So the last set of creation tools that I want to talk about today starts off with this eraser tool. Do you see this eraser tool right here? So I'm going to hold my mouse down on there, and you'll notice that there's 3 tools. Okay, one says erase, this one says scissors, and this one says knife. All of these you can sort of consider as subtractive tools. Remember we talked about additive or subtractive drawing strategies? So subtractive strategies allow me to remove from an object and make something more complicated. So that would be true with these 3 options that I have to work with. Now I'm going to delete my little drawing over here, and I'm going to draw a primitive, and I'm going to draw a straight line. So I kind of lied a little bit. I am going to use the line tool and draw a straight line. All right, so, and you know what? I'm also going to use my pencil tool, and I'm going to draw a squiggly line. All right, so I have, all right, what does that look like, guys? A landscape. Look at that. You guys are graphic designers. So the reason I drew this is that one is what type of path? What type of path is this? Closed. And what type of paths are these? Open. So I drew a closed path and a couple of open paths on purpose because these tools are exclusive to a path type. They're exclusive to a path type. Some work on both, some only work on one type. And some change a path from a closed path to an open path. So we need to have an awareness of what's going to happen here. Okay, so this first tool right here, the eraser tool, right? I'm going to work on this open path, right? And if I look at this, you'll notice it says path right here. It's describing this one. And I have 3 objects in this layer. 3 objects in this layer. When I go to the eraser tool, if I double click on this, you'll notice that I can change the size of the eraser head. All right, so you can see that. I can make it bigger or smaller, and that's based on point size. I hit OK. So here's the eraser size now. It's pretty big, right? So let me draw along this path, and when I let go, you'll notice it broke it into 2 different parts. And where I drew with it, it erased that information with greater accuracy than the previous eraser tool called the path eraser. So the path eraser, not so good. The eraser, very good. Okay, now check out the eraser tool on this closed path. Check out the eraser tool on this closed path. What did it do with it? Did it open it or leave it closed? I left it closed. Pretty big deal, right? Watch what happens when I click right here once. I have a little Pac-Man. Okay, so it's a subtractive tool. I could have used this to draw my donut the other day. All right, so it's a subtractive tool, and it keeps the object closed. Okay, so really wonderful tool. Let me undo that. I'm going to undo all of my erasing. All right, this next tool right here is called the scissor tool. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, time out. The eraser tool, did it work with an open path? Did it work with a closed path? Yeah, it worked with both. So that one's not exclusive. But it did keep the closed path closed, which is kind of special. Yes, Angela?
Unless you go straight through.
Yes, oh, that's a really good point. Angela says, what happens if you go all the way through it? Well, in that case, oops, let me select it. Make sure I did that right. In that case, yes, it did cut it apart. If I go all the way through, it's as if I took a knife and cut the object in half. So very good observation. All right, the next tool is called the scissor tool. All right, so here is my open path, and the scissor tool is the most accurate cutting tool of all of the tools in the software. So wherever I click, it's going to create a cut at that spot. So I have ultimate control, and I want to cut it right here where this anchor exists. It doesn't have to be on an anchor. It can be anywhere along the line. But I'm going to click on that anchor, and you'll notice that it now is a separate piece. If I go to this line, go to the scissor tool, click there, it's now a separate piece. So the scissor tool allows me to cut this with great accuracy. All right, what about the circle? What happens there? So if I click once here, I basically created an incision in the closed shape. And that means that it's no longer closed. It's actually open. Except the anchors are right on top of each other. So it's hard to perceive it, but you'll notice I can break it apart. Right? So the scissor tool will take a closed shape and make it an open shape. That's really important to understand. Now, Angie brought up in the previous tool, we cut the other object in half. I could do this with a closed shape as well. If I click here once, click again on the opposite side, it's now two separate parts. But you can clearly see that it's open, right? Because there's not a line connecting the interior of that shape.